Hello and welcome to You Say Maize, I Say Blue. Michael, you may be saying maize, but I know who's not saying maize tonight. It's Chris Hall who's ducking me again.
Yeah, Chris is ducking us, and nobody around here is blue about it.
All right, without further ado, let's go right to the big board. Let's see what we got for topics today. Mike, first off, USA Baseball. They lost to Mexico in the semifinals or quarterfinals of some qualifying tournament. The defending Olympic champion is not going to be playing in the 2004 Olympics. What's going on with that?
Well, this is one of the big problems with the way that this system is set up. The team that won the gold medal in the previous Olympics should always be in the next Olympics. There's no justifiable reason for them to be out of it. In fact, I think the team that won the gold, the silver, and the bronze should be back there. They were the best team 4 years ago. Why are they not one of the top two teams?
Everybody wants to see the United States and Cuba facing off in this tournament because those are the two best teams in the world. But even the way that they qualify, they should be playing some kind of double elimination tournament because the U.S. is obviously the better team than Mexico. Mexico got into this because somebody pulled a Chris Hall, I think it was the Bahamas, and they just didn't show up. And so Mexico got into the tournament. Chris, I'm just kidding. We know you're out there working hard tonight. But still, anyway, Mexico, they had one fluke win, and they're in the Olympics, and the U.S. isn't. That's just flat out wrong.
Well, one of the things that may have to change with this is that the United States is going to have to figure out a way where they take Major League Baseball players from teams who aren't in the playoffs or whose seasons ended early for whatever reason and try to get them to play because these minor league guys obviously aren't cutting it if we can't beat Mexico. This is not a baseball playing team.
Well, you know what, though? In a one-game season, in a one game, anyone can beat anybody. You put out some minor leaguers. They played great in the Olympics down in Sydney. They should have won this. Regardless, they should be in the Olympics next year.
Well, regardless, Tommy Lasorda was right, and it is an embarrassment to our country and to the Olympics in general. One other thing that was an embarrassment this week, Jim, Kellen Winslow went off. He just went absolutely nuts after Miami's loss to Tennessee. And Jim, what do you make of this? Was he justified in doing this?
Justified. If I hear one more person say that he was justified doing this and that it was showing emotion, I'm going to throw up because this was ridiculous. Kellen Winslow had no business going off the way he did about and comparing himself to a soldier at war. Come on. I think somebody on ESPN.com today said we should recognize him on Veterans Day today for being a soldier. But it was ridiculous. And you know what?
Well, I'm waving my flag for him right now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, Winslow used to be. I used to think of him as a pretty good tight end, pretty good guy, and then sometime in the Fiesta Bowl last year, his head got too big for his game, and that's what you saw erupt on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact comment. Something about he's going after my knees. I'll try to kill him. This is a game, folks. It's a college football game. Nobody's trying to kill anybody. That's a little drastic. And for Kellen Winslow to go out like this, and he even said to the reporters after the game, put this in your newspaper, make some money off of this. Well, college football does not want to make money off a player like Kellen Winslow.
Just in today, Larry Coker has said he's not going to start this week. That doesn't mean anything because you know he's going to be in the second play of the game. It's not the discipline, and that shows you that Miami is going back to the early 90s and the way their football program acted then when rappers were paying people off and they were thugs out on the field. Their national championship team a couple years ago played with a lot of class. That's not the case down in Coral Gables anymore.
Well, I always thought it would be interesting to see what happened when Miami finally lost a game, and now you see they've lost 2 in a row, and this is what happens. They revert back to what they were like in the old days. If this is what's going to happen with Miami football, then I don't think their fans want any part of it.
I agree with you. And let's move on now.
Okay.
Baseball. I couldn't think of a good segue, but baseball postseason awards are being handed out right now. Yesterday, Dontrell Willis and Angel Berroa won the American and National League Rookie of the Year awards. Today, Roy Halladay took the Cy Young Award for the American League. Michael, do you think the Rookie of the Year awards went to the right guy and the Cy Young Award for that matter?
Jim, I'm not exactly sure who Angel Berroa is, and I watch an awful lot of baseball. I've heard of this guy in passing, but I don't see him as the Rookie of the Year in the American League. In the National League, Dontrell Willis was the obvious choice. He injected life into the Marlins when they were off to a horrible start. He played well into the All-Star break. He slipped a little bit at the end of the year, but he definitely made interest in Florida baseball. As for the Cy Young in the AL, Halladay had a great season, and I'm a little partial. He was on my fantasy team. It was awesome for me. He won a lot of games in a row. You couldn't pick anyone else in the American League.
You know, I agree with you on the Angel Berroa, but I don't think the Hideki Matsui thing should be there either because he did play so many years in Japan. That was playing professional baseball at a high level. He shouldn't have been eligible. I'm glad he didn't win the award. I'm not even so sure Dontrell was Rookie of the Year in the National League. Brandon Webb had better numbers than him in most categories. It was the hype he generated. Plus, the Marlins went so far into the playoffs, and the awards are being given out so far after the season. Honestly, Michael, I couldn't tell you who should win the National League MVP right now. The season's too far gone. I remember stuff from the World Series, the playoffs.
Well, that's part of the problem, I think, with these postseason awards is that they're not given out directly after the season ends. So you have voters influenced, perhaps, by what teams do in the playoffs and how players perform, even though Halladay wasn't in the playoffs and neither was Angel Baroa. But a guy like Dontrelle Willis, he made another impact and possibly swung some votes.
Yeah, I think they need to do what the NBA does, give them out during the playoffs, because I think they'd mean a lot more given out at that point in time.
Yeah, Jim, I think it's time to move on at this point. We're going to talk a little NHL. What are your early season thoughts, surprise teams? I know we've talked a lot about the Red Wings.
That's obviously an early season surprise. Seeing the Red Wings struggle like they are, only playing .500 right now, but just when you think they're down and out, they pitch a shutout against a division rival like they did last night. But the obvious early season surprise to me besides them has got to be the Tampa Bay Lightning. What is going on down at the Ice Palace down there? Bill Davidson's other team is going crazy. They're playing out of their mind.
I'm still disturbed that there's a team in Tampa Bay. I don't understand how a state like Florida can support two hockey teams.
Well, it's because all those retirees that were down there that lived in Hockey Town in the past that moved down there.
And they pay $7 to go to a game and watch what right now is the best team in the NHL.
That's right. I mean,
and I can't get a ticket to a Red Wings game unless I shell out $44 for standing room only.
That's something. That's a whole other topic. But another big surprise: the Vancouver Canucks are playing out of their mind, whereas the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche are playing more like the Red Wings right now. This could be a new shift in Western Conference powers.
It could be, Jim, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Wings kind of struggled for the first quarter of the season. They have new guys they're trying to shuffle in. Their goalie situation still isn't figured out. Hasek has only played a few games.
Yeah, he's back now.
He's back. He had the shutout, but he had the groin injury, and who knows? He's almost 40 years old. He's going to have little injuries probably that sideline him from time to time. Another team that's really struggling, the Ottawa Senators. This is a team that many thought would be the top in the Eastern Conference, and they're below .500 right now also. I don't know if maybe there was too much hype going into the season, or if maybe they're having a type of situation like the Red Wings before Bowman was the coach. When they have good teams, they just can't get it done.
That could be the case.
They need Mike Keenan.
I don't know about that. That guy's a nut job. Moving on to another sport where there's a lot of surprises early on in the season and carrying on past the midpoint, the NFL. Who would have thought at the beginning of the year you're going to have teams like the Cowboys and the Panthers running away with the NFC? Are these guys contenders or pretenders?
Well, I still want to believe that they're pretenders, but they just keep winning. Carolina beat Tampa Bay, dropped Tampa Bay below .500. Their defense is really good. They have a great defensive-minded coach, and defense wins championships. Look at Baltimore Ravens a couple of years ago. That's how they won it.
Yeah, but you can't tell me Jake Delhomme is going to lead a team far into the playoffs.
You could have never told me that Trent Dilfer was going to lead a team far into the playoffs.
Trent Dilfer was at least a top 6 draft pick.
Well, that doesn't make it good. Andre Ware was a top
8. Tell me where Delhomme went to college.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this guy? Awful.
He went to... I don't know. I don't know where he went. It doesn't matter. He's in the league.
In the AFC, who are the contenders and pretenders there that are among the top teams? You got Kansas City up there, the Titans, the Colts. I like the Colts, and of course the New England Patriots.
Well, obviously it has to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 9-0. They haven't really had a challenging game in a while.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, their first loss is coming when the Honolulu Blue and Silver go to Kansas City, hand them their first loss. We're moving on to Keith Jackson with that because I don't want you coming after me. There's reports saying that Keith Jackson is going to be calling the 100th Michigan-Ohio State game at the Big House on Bo Schembechler's request. Is this a good thing for sports broadcasting, Michael? A good thing for college sports?
This is a fantastic thing. There's nobody better in the game than Keith Jackson. There's so much history involved with this guy. You see it on our screen. Whoa, Nelly, a sophomore. Who calls a game better than Keith Jackson? Nobody. I'm just happy it's not Musburger.
He's just a cowboy passing through. But is this a good thing that Bo Schembechler can dictate who's going to be calling a game?
Are you going to tell Bo no?
Heck no.
Certainly not. It's Bo Schembechler.
What Bo says is gospel around here. I agree with you.
Well, it is a good thing to see Keith Jackson coming to the Big House for a game. I know he prefers to stay on the West Coast now in his retirement years. He keeps saying every year he's not calling any more games, but this is a huge game, a 100th rivalry game, and it doesn't get any bigger than that.
That's true.
And it's going to most likely decide the Big Ten championship. So why would you want anybody but Keith Jackson?
That's right. There's been a lot of agreeing here in the first segment. We're going to bring somebody on for the main event that I'm sure both of us will disagree some with. He'll be right here when we come right back on You Say Maize, I Say Blue.
Express yourself.
All right, welcome back to You Say Maize, I Say Blue. I'm Jim Stahoviak. He's Michael Ostrander. And joining us for the main event, our college football expert, Matt Nolan. Matt, are you there?
Well, expert might be a little far to go on this one, but Matt, welcome.
How's it going, guys?
Matt, good to see you. Good to hear from you. Matt, we got some questions for you revolving around the BCS that came out yesterday. Michigan did not move, even though they moved up in both of the polls. They didn't move. They stayed at 8th, and a couple teams jumped them. What's going on there, Matt?
You know, I was really pissed off when I saw the new BCS come out tomorrow. If you look at the points and the number differential between 5th and 8th right now, it's really close. It's about 2 points. I think what's hurting us right now is that our preseason games that we had with Houston, preseason game with Central, they've been losing big time. The thing that I was really ticked off about was looking at the 6th spot in the BCS. TCU sitting 6th in the BCS. I mean,
No, Matt, that is the big talk right now, is TCU is sitting at the 6th spot. If they hold that spot, which they probably won't, they'll be guaranteed a BCS game where they're going to go and just get slaughtered by someone. Do you want to see TCU in a major bowl?
I think this is the thing that pollsters really have to think about at this point, is that you can think about TCU having an undefeated season. There's an unprecedented number of only, a very small number of one-loss teams. I mean, we're at the point where Michigan, even if we were to win out and have a big win against Ohio State, we could vault into the national title game if a couple of teams lose ahead of us. The thing that pollsters need to think about when they're making their votes, I mean, do you think TCU would actually stack up with these teams? I think if you look at the New York Times poll, the New York Times poll still has TCU around 27th. I think that's probably pretty accurate. Throw them in the Motor City Bowl, throw them in the Sun Bowl, throw them in a Gator Bowl with an at-large bid. If you play them in a BCS game, they're going to get beat 60-0, and it's going to kill the magical season that they have had of going undefeated. It'll ruin it for TCU, I think.
So, Matt, you're saying that you're disappointed that TCU's in the top 6. You don't think they belong there. Why do we love Cinderellas in college basketball, but we hate to see them in college football? Is this a double standard? What's going on, Matt?
I don't think it's the fact that we hate Cinderellas in college football. I think we really like Cinderellas in college football. If you look at last year, after Ohio State came through and won the national title, there's a big wave of people that love the Ohio State football team all over the country just because of the way that they came in, they squeaked out the games.
Yeah, but Ohio State is
Matt,
a traditional power.
That's not
right.
a Cinderella.
Well,
We're talking
well,
TCU.
Here's my argument. With the football, you've got one game at the end of the year. It's all about voting. It's all about pollsters. And pollsters are giving credit to TCU. If you were to have a team that was a Cinderella team get a seed that's a 1 or 2 seed in the men's NCAA tournament, I think you've got issues. But when a team gets to the Final Four in the NCAA, they've played through the tournament. They've gotten there. They've earned it. And TCU, squeaking out wins against Louisville, overtime against a 2-8 Arizona team, they just haven't proved themselves.
Well, do you think if TCU does get into a BCS game and gets blown out, we're just going to, the talk of this mid-majors getting into a BCS game as an undefeated team is going to stop, or do you think they're going to keep going crazy about it?
I think it'll keep going because it adds to the drama during the season. There's a reason why they can take a Tuesday night game and have it be Miami of Ohio versus Bowling Green and have a lot of people watch the football game. If you don't have hype around those teams and having them have a shot at doing something and billing how good they might possibly be, you're never going to have them on TV. You're never going to have people watch them on TV. I think that is a good thing for the sport. But I think when you look at all this hype around the early season, I mean, one, it's easier for the smaller conference teams to be good earlier because their talent is more focused around playing as a team. It's focused around having those guys be a unit as one, whereas the guys who are the big talent that come in for the big schools really don't gel until later in the season. They improve as the year goes on. So I think the mid-major schools are probably better earlier. That's why you see the upsets. I'm not sure that you'd have even an Alabama losing to a Northern Illinois at this point in the year. But when you look at what's actually happened in the MAC, Northern Illinois losing, Miami of Ohio lost, Bowling Green lost. I mean,
I think Miami of Ohio's only lost is to Iowa, actually.
But they have a loss.
Or they got smoked by.
Well, they have a loss, Matt, but these 3 teams that you just mentioned are all in the top 25. Obviously, there are people out there who think they're good teams.
I think they're getting respect from the voters right now because they are winning games and because they're looking pretty respectable. I think when you look at the end of the season, I mean, we're looking at a possible showdown, guys. I don't know if you've noticed or not. In the Motor City Bowl, if the Big Ten doesn't get a second at-large bid, or it doesn't get one of the at-large bids in the BCS and have two teams in the BCS, the number 7 Big Ten team, which could be a Minnesota, it could be a Wisconsin, it could be
Probably a Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean it's probably looking
likely.
Wisconsin at this point. And even if Notre Dame can pull off the end of the season victory against Illinois, or Northwestern could be eligible for the BCS game, you're going to have a Big Ten team playing against one of those MAC teams, and I think you might have a decent matchup at that point. People are going to talk about how great the MAC is if a MAC team beats the number 6 Big Ten or the number 7 Big Ten team in that game. But, I mean, that's exactly the thing. The number 1 or 2 MAC teams playing against the 6 or 7
Those
Big
teams
Ten
can play
team.
with the middle of the pack in the big conference, but they can't play the big dogs. They shouldn't be in the BCS. I think that's going to be kind of the consensus from everybody here. Matt, thanks for coming on the show tonight. Thanks for talking college football, breaking it down. Hope to see you
Thanks
again
for having
soon.
me on, guys.
Quick before you go, Matt, one last thing. Where do you see Michigan playing in a bowl game?
Right now I still see Michigan and Pasadena. I think USC's schedule is too easy for them to not be able to get through it, especially with a couple of bye weeks before a couple of those games. But note, USC's only loss this season was coming off a bye week. So if they lose, I see LSU dropping. We still got a shot for New Orleans, and that'd be nice because it's cheaper to travel there than it is to Pasadena.
If we go, we'll see you there, Matt.
It's good stuff, Matt. Thanks.
Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll be right back with more of You Say Maize, I Say Blue after the break.
Welcome back to You Say Maize, I Say Blue. I am Michael Ostrander alongside Jim Stahoviak.
But I'm saying blue.
You're saying blue this week. I'm saying maize. Now that we have that straight. We kicked Matt Nolan out of here. We thank him for his time here, the main event. And we're going to move on to emails. We have an email segment of our show. We got a lot of good things in our mailbox this week, Jim. And I have the first one, and it's addressed to you. Jim, the Major League Baseball free agency period has opened up. Where do you see all these good free agents going? What are the possible new homes?
Well, I tell you, I don't know. It's the top 2 guys right now are obviously Vladimir Guerrero and Miguel Tejada, although today it sounds like Miguel Tejada may be a little older than he actually says he is. I got to believe he's going to go to somebody who spends money like crazy, and it's not going to be the Yankees because they already have a shortstop. I see him going to L.A. and becoming part of the Dodgers organization. Guerrero's a wild card. He could go anywhere. He's not used to winning. If the Yankees shell out all kinds of cash for him, though, he may show up in New York. But from what I'm hearing, Baltimore is really going to go break the bank and try and sign him, and things sound favorable to him going there. So that might be the case. Now, pitching-wise, I think we've got Andy Pettitte. I think he's going to Houston. There's talk today that Roger Clemens may up as a Texas Ranger. And then how are the Yankees going to get replace those guys? They're going to sign Bartolo Colon for sure, I almost think. And there's a possible trade in the works for Kurt Schilling to end up in New York.
Yeah, the other guy you didn't mention is Kevin Millwood. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. But we got to move on to the next topic, Jim. Next email.
Michael, this one's for you, and it's
All right.
questioning who will Michigan play in a bowl game that they go to, and assuming it's a Rose Bowl, who are they going to play?
Well, assuming it's a Rose Bowl, obviously we would want to play a Pac-10 school. I don't think that's going to happen. I still see USC winning out and going to the national championship game. I don't think the Rose Bowl would take Washington State with 2 losses. With that said, if TCU's in the top 6, I really hope the Rose Bowl doesn't take them. They'll have the second pick. I don't think they would take them as the at-large school. I could see this being Texas. That'd be a great matchup. I could also see it being Tennessee, and boy, would I love to have a rematch with the Vols.
I disagree. I think if Washington State is eligible for the BCS and some team isn't sitting in the top 6 that has to go, the Rose Bowl is so upset that the past few years they haven't had Big Ten, Pac-10. They're going to take Washington State. Pair them against.
Well, is Washington State going to be in the top 12? I'm not.
Yeah, they will. If they win out, they will.
It's it could be close with the way these other teams, with the way it works itself out. I don't know. For a while we talked maybe Miami in the Rose Bowl. I don't think that's going to happen now. They could lose to Pittsburgh this week, which sets up a possibility of maybe a Pitt or a Va-Tech, one of those
Well, those
teams.
are tied into some other bowls, so they can't. It would be an at-large probably that the
Well,
that the Rose Bowl
if the Big East were to
Right,
get 2,
okay,
I don't
right.
think that'll happen.
I
think it's more
you're
likely
right.
that we'll get Texas or Tennessee. I wouldn't mind playing either one of those teams. I'd really like to play Tennessee and Fat Fulmer or Phil Fulmer, their coach. I'd really like to play him again.
Your buddy, Phil Fulmer, huh?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
guys go eating together?
Oh, we're good friends. Ever since the Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson days, we've been getting along.
Speaking of Peyton and Charles Woodson, what's the next email?
The next email, Jim, is again to you. This talks about the Heisman Trophy. This year there's a lot of parity. They're not sure who the top 3 are, let alone the top 1. Jim, has the Heisman Trophy lost its meaning?
It's starting to. It definitely is. A couple more years like these last few, and the Heisman Trophy is almost going to be an afterthought. I mean, it's one of the greatest traditions in college football, yet right now we still couldn't tell you who 3 guys are that are going to be invited to New York City. I mean, people say Jason White, but how many people have actually seen him play? Well, Larry Fitzgerald, sophomore receiver, I don't think he's going to win it. There hasn't been much talk about Chris Perry, but if he has a big game against Ohio State, he could get invited. I don't think there's been a great Heisman race between great players since Charles Woodson and Peyton Manning.
I think you're right, Jim. You talked briefly about Chris Perry. He's a leading rusher in college football, and yet you still see 2 or 3 running backs rated ahead of him in some Heisman polls. So I don't really understand this. And Jason White, like you said, yeah, he's led Oklahoma to an undefeated record, but is he really all that great of a quarterback? I'd like to think that Larry Fitzgerald could be in the top 3, but like you said, he's a sophomore. They won't look at that. So I don't know. It's kind of up in the air, and it's really disappointing that there hasn't been a clear-cut winner. I think part of the problem goes back to the days where you had Gino Torretta winning it, and Eric Crouch, and Charlie Ward. Yeah. These guys kind of watered down the Heisman, in my opinion.
They really have, and it's a shame because that really is a great award. Moving on, one of our viewers has looked at you and said, Michael, you look like a food connoisseur. Who has the best food in Ann Arbor?
Well, Jim, I can tell you I'm a food consumer. I don't know if I'm necessarily a connoisseur. Ann Arbor has a lot of great places to eat. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. I obviously have firsthand knowledge. I'm a little partial towards Pizza House from time to time. I don't mind Cottage Inn. But if I'm really looking to have a good dinner, you know, I don't mind going to like the Ann Arbor Brewing Company. That's a good place to sit down and eat. So there's a lot of good places out there. It depends on what kind of mood you're in. Yeah, sometimes you're in the mood for In-N-Out. It's 4 in the morning. You just need some pizza. I don't know.
The parents are in town. Have them take you to the Chop House.
Well, if the parents are in town or if the girlfriend's paying, you're going to the Chop House.
That's right.
All right, Jim, we got to move on. We're going to go to the what if portion of the show. And Jim, this first one's for you. Jim, the Indiana Pacers are off to a great start. They're 5-1 early in the season. What if you were Rick Carlisle, new head coach of the Indiana Pacers?
If I'm Rick Carlisle, I'm thrilled that we beat the Pistons in the first game and kind of stick it to them and say, hey, look, I am a decent coach. And I think that record does it too. It says, Pistons, you're losing, you're missing out because Indiana wasn't so hot at the end of last year, and Rick Carlisle's got them off to a great start. But on the flip side of that, Indiana started out real hot last year. Rick Carlisle's sitting on a potential volcano with Ron Artest, waiting for him and the whole season to go up in smoke.
Yeah, he's a ticking time bomb. I can't wait for Artest to say something stupid. The countdown's already begun. I have the over-under is 3 more days or 3 more games until he does something dumb.
I'll take the under on that. Michael,
all right.
What if you were Larry Brown? You switched team to the Pistons this year. You are also 5-1.
Well, if I'm Larry Brown, I'm thrilled. He publicly stated that before the season he thought the Pistons would start slow. He said the veterans came into camp late. He has a lot of new guys. They overhauled their roster. 40% of their starting lineup is new this year. So he thought they'd have a lot of problems to work out. It might take them a while to be a good team, but they're 5-1, headed on a 4-game road trip, and it looks like they could beat some of these teams. Well, Sacramento's lost 3 of 4. They're hitting them at the right time.
They go 3-1 out there, and they're going to be talked about as one of the best teams in the
I agree. They'll be 8-2 at that point through their first 10 games. And Larry Brown, before the season, said, hey, if we're 6-4 through our first 10, that's not bad. We're not going to be good until the midpoint of the season. Well, guess what? They're a pretty darn good team, Jim.
They are.
All right, Jim, moving on. We talked earlier about Kellen Winslow's little blow-up earlier this week, and one of the people that this has to disturb the most is his father, Kellen Winslow Sr. Jim, what if you were Kellen Winslow Sr.?
I'll make this short and sweet. If I'm Kellen Winslow Sr., I'd take Junior out behind the woodshed and tell him who's boss and tell him, look, you shut up about this crazy rants. You shut up about the chosen one name you gave yourself. You stop doing the Heisman pose when you've caught 1 touchdown this year, and Kellen gets a little whooping from his old man.
So you think this was handled internally or paternally?
Yes.
You don't think Larry Coker had something to do with this one? All right, Jim.
Michael, you are Cheryl Burnett. What do you think of your season, your team, and your new job here at Michigan with the women's basketball?
Well, you have to be excited. She moved out of this small school she was at, Southeast Missouri State or Southwest Missouri State. One of these, I don't know which one.
One of those Roush schools.
Yeah, one of those southern schools where basketball is big, but they're still in a small conference. They have a hard time getting great exposure. Now she's at Michigan, where you have exposure everywhere. We're wearing it. We're selling it to you right now. We're here to bring it to you live. But Cheryl Burnett has to be exciting. The team she has is a pretty darn good one. They just played the Netherlands national team. I don't know if that's a great judge, but they more than doubled them up, held them to 35
a college
points.
basketball team can hold a national team to 35 points. I think they're doing pretty
It's
good.
the Netherlands. They were
Doesn't
playing with
matter.
snowshoes on, Jim. Come on. Yeah, but Cheryl Burnett's got to be excited about her team, excited about her job, and it sounds like she's working on things to get fan support out at Chrysler Arena for the girls, and I'm excited for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great season for basketball. Well, that'll do it for What If. It's time for the rants. I love this part.
Yes, I know you do. Any airtime you get is great.
Stacked facts tonight as you see the headline, Lions and Tigers and turning it around. Oh, my.
Oh, Jim.
This comes from the Lions having won 2 games in a row, back-to-back. This week we go out to Seattle. We're going to take the Seahawks 3 in a row, break that road game losing streak. And then the Tigers. The board out of Detroit is that the Tigers are going to look to bid on the big free agents. Miguel Tejada, Vladimir Guerrero, coming to Detroit. The Tigers are turning around. I'm looking forward to Detroit sports coming up. Michael?
Jim, you're delusional. Do you think these free agents are going to come to Detroit? Oh, boy. And you really think that the Lions are going to win 3 in a row? I'll leave it at that. That was your rant. I'm going to move on to mine, and we are going to talk about guarantees. Jim, guarantees have got to only be reserved for big games. This week, you have a member of the Cincinnati Bengals saying, "We will beat the Kansas City Chiefs." Interesting. The Cincinnati Bengals haven't won 9 games in the past 5 seasons, let alone thinking they're going to beat the 9-0 Chiefs this week. Guarantees are for Broadway Joe. They're for guys like that. You don't come out in the middle of an NFL season, a meaningless Week 11 game, and make a guarantee that you're going to beat the best team in the league. Will these guys shut up already?
Not to mention, Mike, this guy's already made 2 different guarantees on separate occasions, and he's 1-1. So
if you're going to make a guarantee, make it right, like Jamal Lewis of the Ravens when he said he was going to break the rushing record.
That is the most unbelievable thing I ever heard or seen. Somebody calling that and then
Boy's
going out
got
and do
some
it.
brass if he's going to make that prediction
Yes,
and go out
he
and do
does.
it.
That is amazing. Michael, I'm sure we've had plenty of errors and omissions tonight. Let's take it to Angie Churchill, Stat Girl, for
Stat
what
Girl.
we did wrong.
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're great.
doing
How
all
are
right.
you?
All right, I just have a few things for you guys tonight. You guys
A few
did
things.
pretty
She has
good.
a list, Jim.
Jim, I got to tell you, USA baseball, they lost in the semifinals, not the quarterfinals. Clear that up a little bit.
Thank
and
you.
Mexico is in the Olympics. So I clear that up. And one thing for Michael here, I just wanted to let you know about the Kellen Winslow quote. This is specifically what he said. He said, "They're trying to kill me, so I'm going to try and kill them."
Real nice.
All right, yeah.
Now,
Stand-up guy.
yeah, he's great. I mean, he might as well guarantee a win. I don't know. But I just had one more thing to say about the guaranteed wins. That's for us to guarantee, not the players.
That's right.
Because then you look like an idiot when you don't do it.
Very
So,
good.
that's all I have to really
Thanks a
say.
lot,
We
Angie.
guarantee great things out of Angie Churchill in the future, and especially out of the Michigan softball team.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Angie.
thank you.
Now we're going to head to the end zone for our big finish. Michael, ESPN, they got a new poll. They did the old best unis in sports. Ugliest uni, what's your ugliest uni out there?
Oh, all 9 of the Oregon uniforms that can only be made worse by the Birmingham Groves version of them that are terribly ugly. These Oregon uniforms are a joke, Jim.
Yeah,
What's your worst?
I agree. The Oregon ones are terrible. I think the yellow ones are the worst.
Yeah, they're all bad. Jim, you skipped over one here. Elf. 2 great movies open this weekend, The Matrix and Elf. If you had to spend your $9 for a ticket, which it is now, which one are you going to go see?
The one I did go see, Elf.
Yeah, it's much better, Jim.
For
There's
sure.
no comparison.
Mike, what's your take on Howard Dean's comments about the Democrats have to go get the voters that have the Confederate flags on the back of their cars?
I'm zipping it, Jim, because this is a very touchy
Mike,
issue
why
around
did he
this
say
university.
the Southerners that had the number 3 on their cars?
I'm just telling you, Jim, if this was a Republican who came out and said this, there'd be a lot of issues with this. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to be chastised around the
That's
university.
probably good. Michael, next, deer hunting starts next week. You going?
This is huge on my side of the state, Jim. If I don't go, then I'll be chastised. I'll probably be crucified. Deer hunting is you don't understand this, Jim. On the west side of the state, kids get the day off for deer hunting. Excuse day off. This isn't just take your son to work day. This is a national holiday, of course.
Maybe it is take your son to work day in some parts.
Oh, I think it is.
Real quick, Mike, who do you got in the Grey Cup championship game this week, Edmonton or Montreal?
What's a Grey Cup? I'm going to go with Edmonton, the Eskimos.
I'll
Why
take
not?
Montreal. And lastly, is Chris Hall going to be here next week?
Chris Hall. Seems like I remember this kid. Did he used to host this show? My guess is he's gonna stiff us once again next week, Jim.
Well, that's right. He probably will. That means you and I will be back. Stay tuned next week for more rants and raves from the two of us. Stay tuned. We'll be back next week with You Say Maize, I Say Blue. That's it for today.